Please subscribe before watching the movie. Welcome back to Movies Recap. Please subscribe before watching the movie. Welcome back to Movies Recap. Today I will show you an action-adventure crime film from 2016 titled Nerve. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Venus V. Delmonico, a high school senior from Staten Island, logs in on her laptop. She opens Spotify, puts on music and checks her email from CalArts University. She got accepted, but she's doubting whether to go because she doesn't want to leave her mother alone on Staten. Venus starts writing an email to politely decline CalArts. When a notification pops up at her crush, JP Guerrero tagged her in a photo she took from him. At the same time, her friend Sydney video calls her. They talk about Venus's CalArts application and about a new online game called Nerve. Sydney opens up the game in a robotic voice, explains how Nerve is like truth or dare minus the truth. The robot also says that you can play either as a watcher or a. Sydney is a part of the game as a player and thinks it's cool, but Venus tells her that the game looks sketchy. Later in the kitchen, Venus talks about college with her mom, Nancy. She hasn't told her mom that she applied to CalArts. That's why Nancy still thinks her daughter will study on Staten Island and that they will be roommates. Venus suggests to her mom they rent out Mike's room on Airbnb, but Nancy gets angry and says no. Mike is Venus's brother who dies 2 years ago, and both Venus and her mother are still dealing with the. V is an amateur photographer, so she goes to the school's football match to take photos for the school newspaper. Her friend Sydney is a cheerleader, and before the game starts, she asks a friend to film her for Nerve. Turns out she has a dare from the game and has to show her naked, but during the match everybody is in shock, but Sydney completes the challenge and wins a few bucks in the process. Next, we see all types of challenges completed on Nerve. When you enroll as a player, the game takes all of your data and knows what kind of challenges. Anonymous watchers pay to see their favorite players compete to the finals. The watchers can also give dares to the players and are encouraged to film them at all times. Venus and Sydney are sitting in a fast food restaurant with their friends when they start getting into an argument about the game. Sydney insults V, telling her she always stays in her comfort zone so she can't understand the game. She tells V that in real life, she's not a player, only a watcher, and dares her to make the first tip with JP and say. V refuses the dare. So Sydney goes to JP herself and asks him whether he has a girlfriend when he learns that she's actually asking for Venus. He says that he's not interested in V and that she's not his type. Venus is embarrassed in front of everyone, so she leaves the restaurant, goes home, and in a fit of anger, signs up on Nerve as a player. The robot voice from the game explains how the 2 players with the most watchers go to the finale and then explains the 3 rules. All dares must be filmed to be approved. A player will get eliminated if they fail or bail, and snitches get stitch. Then the game asks for her fingerprint as a way to ID her as she puts her finger on the screen. Now automatically creates her profile, taking all her information, including bank accounts, pictures, and favorite books. She immediately gets a dare to kiss a stranger in a diner for $100. V takes one of her best friends with her, Tommy, who warns her about the game and says that some kids died. Tommy is a computer geek, so he explains that the game can't be stopped because everybody that logs on becomes a new server when they arrive at the dinner where she's supposed to kiss a stranger. V is nervous, but decides to kiss a guy reading her favorite book, To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. She goes to the stranger and they start talking about the book. The guy is curious about what's going to happen in the novel, but V nervously kisses him and completes the dare in an instant. She runs away and hides in Tommy's booth, who's filming. The mysterious guy disappears, but Tommy and V quickly notice him dancing and singing in the diner. Venus thinks she's singing to her, but Tommy explains it's all part of the game. The guy Ian is playing the game too and has a dare, just like she did. Ian completes the challenge and sits right next to V and Tommy. Then he tells them how he was reading To the Lighthouse, because that was a. While talking, both Ian and Venus get another dare. They have to go to the city together for $200. Venus is reluctant at first, but she likes Ian as having fun, so decides to go. They get on Ian's motorcycle and start driving toward the city. Meanwhile, Sydney is completing another dare. She has to pretend to fart on people. She's having a great time until she learns that V entered the game too, and that she's rapidly gaining watchers at the same time. Venus is enjoying her time with Ian, but they have to part ways because they completed the. As she awkwardly says her goodbyes, she gets dared to try a dress in an expensive store. Meanwhile, Nancy is confused because she's receiving lots of money in her bank account under V's name. Also, Tommy is concerned about V's safety, so he signs up as a watcher and starts watching her feed in the store. V is having a great time, plus she finds out Ian has the same challenge as her, so they spend more time together, this time dressed in couture. But as they have fun, another player, Ty, has a dare to steal their clothes from the changing. V and Ian soon notice their clothes are missing. The dress V is wearing costs over $2,000, so she starts panicking because she can't afford it, wondering what's going on. Both of them get another challenge to leave the store for $2,500 since their old clothes are gone and they don't have any money. They must leave without paying. But V figures out another solution. She notices how the dare doesn't specify they need to leave the store with clothes on, so they start running toward the exit in their under. When they arrive at the motorcycle, they find the expensive clothes attached to the handles with receipts. Apparently one of the watchers bought the clothes for them. Tommy still suspects the game, so he calls Sydney and talks about V behind her back. Sydney learns Versus in the top 10 players and gets jealous. Tommy also contacts one of his hacker friends to get a PAs to a site called Aruba to find more about Ian and Nerve. He learns that Ian was part of another series of challenges in Seattle that ended tragically with a player. Meanwhile, Venus gets a new dare to get a tattoo that Ian chooses since he remembered her favorite book. He picks a lighthouse. They start opening up and get closer to each other. The watchers like to see them as a couple, so they give them another challenge, but this one is not that easy. Ian has to drive blindfolded at 60 miles per hour through New York City and trust V to give him the right directions. All this for $10,000. V doesn't want to do the challenge, but Ian convinces her. They go on a dangerous adventure and manage to complete the dare, win the money, and even kiss at the end. Soon they gain a massive following and become sort of celebrities in the Nerve community. Sydney and Vi's other friends are at a party watching a live stream of Ian and V filmed by other watchers. Sydney gets upset because she isn't the center of attention anymore. Plus, during the live stream, Ian starts asking V about Sydney and she starts bashing her friend. She tells him that Sydney always puts her down and uses her to feel better about her own insec. Ian then suggests they go to the party where Sydney is at so that V can show her how cool she really is. Venus doesn't know she's actually being recorded by Ian and everybody at the party hears her gossiping. Meanwhile, Nancy calls Tommy and asks him why V isn't returning her calls and why is she receiving a lot of money in her bank account. Tommy lies to her, telling her that V is playing online poker and that's how she wins the money at the party. Nobody likes Sydney, especially after they hear how mean she's been to V, so the watchers start plotting a dangerous air. Soon as she's dancing, Sydney's phone beeps. It's a new dare to walk on a ladder from one building to another. She's drunk but still decides to do it. She thinks she can use the attention from watchers after the scandal with V. As she's walking the ladder in high heels, other people at the party are filming her. She's scared, but she can't go back as she needs to complete the challenge to stay in the game. Sydney starts walking on the ladder when one guy yells that she has to film the dare. Otherwise, it won. She takes the phone out of her back pocket and starts filming herself while shaking. People start yelling and arguing with each other about whether or not Sydney has to film herself. She tells them to stop so she can concentrate, stands up and continues to walk, but already on her second step, she slips in her phone, drops on the ground. Nerve tells her she failed the dare and it eliminates her from the game. Next, we see other people failing at dangerous dares. We also see a clip of Ty who's laying on train tracks while a train passes on top. Obviously this guy is in it for the win, and obviously the game is more dangerous than V thought. Afterward, Venus and Ian are driving through the streets of New York City, going to the hotel where the party's at. As they enter the room, everybody starts filming them and taking pictures like they're celebrities, and the watchers, desperate paparazzi, V sees Tommy, and waves at him, but he looks disappointed in her. She also learns that Sydney was kicked out from the game, goes to the bedroom to find her, and enters in on Sydney. Making out with JP. Venus says. The two of them get into a massive fight in front of everybody and say hurtful things to each other. Sydney even says that the coolest thing about V is her deceased brother. While they are fighting, Venus gets another challenge to complete. Sydney's failed dare for $15,000 just to show that she's better than Sydney. V goes to the ladder and walks it all the way to the other building. When she completes the dare, she gives Sydney a snarky stare and receives a notification that she's currently first place. Then Tommy comes and tells her that Ian started the fight between Sydney and her, and that the whole thing was just one dare for him. V confronts Ian. He tries to explain himself, but first tries to get her away from the watchers who are filming their every step. The two of them get into an elevator, but V is really angry and isn't interested in what he has to say. She runs out and tries to contact the police. Ian tells her not to go because the third rule of the game was that snitches get stitches. She finds a police officer and starts telling him everything. Little does she know that at the exact moment all the money from her mother's bank account goes missing, the game punishes V because she broke the rule instantly. Ty arrives and apologizes to V before punching her in the face. It was his dare. Next thing we know, V wakes up in a storage unit where a computer explains how she must win the finals to exit the game. The robotic voice tells her to go on the Staten Island ferry, but as soon as she leaves the storage, Ian finds her and starts explaining how she's now a prisoner of the. He tells her that he and Ty played last year. During that game, one of their friends died. They went to the police, but nobody took them seriously. What's worse is that afterward their lives fell apart. The game punished Ty and Ian for breaking the rule, and their families' bank accounts got wiped out. Now, Ian and Ty have to win the final so they can get out of the game and return their lives to normal. He tells V that Ty would do anything to win too, wants to help her. So he explains that he made an agreement with the. He told them to give him a difficult challenge so he can beat Ty and end up with V in the finals. There he will let her win so she can return to her normal life. But V isn't satisfied with this idea. She contacts Tommy and asks for his help. Tommy arrives with Sydney, who apologizes to V. The friends forgive each other and V explains her plan. She wants Tommy to change Nerve's code and reveal all the watchers' identities. That way all of them will log out and the game. She also sends Sydney on a secret mission that isn't revealed until the end of the film. V then goes on the ferry. While Ian is completing the dare, he must climb on top of a really high building and hang from a crane for 5 seconds with only one hand. Ian completes the dare and now is headed toward the final. So is V, who receives a paper bag with a gun on the ferry. The gun is an entrance ticket for the final competition. Meanwhile, Nancy learns about the game and is looking at the live feed. She calls Tommy and he tells her to come into the hackers. V enters inside a stadium that's surrounded by the anonymous watchers, all of who are wearing masks. Ian arrives and their final dare is to shoot each other. Whoever shoots first wins the game. Ian tells V to shoot him, but she can't, so nobody wins. While all of this is happening, Tommy is at his hacker, friends, and Nancy arrives. All of them are trying to change the game's code and reveal the anonymous watchers. They are having a hard time too, since a lot of bots are blocking them. Suddenly in the ring, Ty appears with a gun and he's willing to shoot Ian just to. V intervenes and addresses the crowd. She calls them cowards and criticizes their actions. She asks the crowd whether they really want someone to die, all for some stupid game. TA is not on her side. He defends the crowd and wants to continue with the dare. V then dares him to shoot her so tight, turns to the crowd and asks whether they approve. The crowd starts yelling, yes. They also get to vote on their phones, yes or no. And most watchers answer yes. After the crowd's final decision is made, Ty Chet. Meanwhile, her mother is watching everything on a live stream, along with Tommy and Sydney. Ian screams and goes to Vi, who is bleeding and looks unconscious. All of a sudden, Tommy and the hackers succeed and change the game's code. Everybody's identity is revealed, and all the watchers get a notification that they are accomplices to murder. The crowd starts feeling uncomfortable, so one by one everybody signs out and leaves the stadium as Tyre approaches in NVV. It turns out before the final Sydney called Ty and persuaded him to participate in their plan to take down Nerve. He shot V with a blank, and the blood is fake. The story has a happy end. The hackers even returned Nancy's money into her bank account. V goes off to CalArts and is in a happy relationship with Ian. She's also still friends with Tommy, and what's most important, Nerve no longer exists. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.